Hey everybody. So I shot a video yesterday and then and watched it. And then after I thought about it, I thought of some additional points that I wanted to make. And so I'm going to shoot this one and upload it as soon as I can. But, here, let's get started. So, I always encourage people to research cults. Research them thoroughly, research what they are, how they operate, who they recruit, how they recruit them, how they retain members, how much money cults make each year. Cults have been known to harass anyone who speaks out against them. They have harassed former members. So you need to be knowledgeable about all of this. And then that knowledge will serve you after you leave the cult. Right? So, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're talking about your life after you leave the cult and safety things, measures and precautions, things you should know about after you leave. All right. So many of us were raised in the cult. We were born into the cult, and we lived in a little plastic little bubble, a sheltered little life. And so many of us had little, knowledge of how the real world works. And so cults can exploit that lack of knowledge, right? And so we have to be careful. It's why I tell you to expand your social circle while you are still in the cult, because you don't want to leave the cult. You don't have any friends or family associating with you now because you've been cut off from them. And so now you can be taken advantage of and you don't have any kind of support system around you. So you definitely want to expand your social circle, but you still want to always be very selective of who you allow in that social circle. Okay? So, let's talk about some of the methods cults have used to keep members for just a moment. Just a moment. So I'll give you one example. One cult leader hired gang members to rob his cult members at gunpoint. And the reason he did this is because it scared them so badly that it made them even more committed and dedicated to the cult. Right? So it served his own purposes, and that's why he did it. Another example is the Jim Jones cult. They had moved down to Guyana, and again, Jim Jones wanted his followers to be completely enthralled with him. He wanted them to believe he was a prophet and had all these special powers and all of this. So he kept warning them that the CIA was after him and the CIA was persecuting him and all of this. What he did was he arranged for a militant group to to do a fake raid on his little camp down there, and that's what happened. So of course, when that happened, the followers were like, "Oh my God, he told us the truth. They are after us. He is God's prophet, and they're trying to take him." And. So it only fed the rhetoric he was telling his followers, and again, it only made them more dedicated and more committed to him. And so, what the point of both examples is that cults will resort to deceit and unethical things to keep members, in the cult, and that doesn't change. Sometimes, even after we leave the cult, they will resort to unethical methods to try to herd us back into the cult. And you hear me talking about, watch child's poster child all the time. Again, that's another example of a poster child. If you go back to the cult, right, and you can say, oh my God, I was in the world and it was so horrible. The people were awful. I don't know what I would do without Jehovah. I'm going to stay here forever and ever. Oh my goodness. That just helps the cult. It just reinforces in the members' minds that what leaders have been telling them is correct, that about how awful the world is. So when we go crawling back again, it serves the cult. So that's why it's important that we be familiar with how cults work. We need to know what are some of the things that that cults do to harm us, as well as what other non-JW people do to harm us. So again, harassment is used by cults. So you should be very careful. If you notice that you're being harassed, try to document it. If you can get if you can get any video footage or proof of the harassment, that's even better. Um, that's one thing I really strongly recommend. If you can get any kind of proof of the harassment that you're experiencing, that you want to do it. If you have to involve law enforcement, you want to do that as well. Um, so another thing that you should be aware of is that sometimes when we leave the cult, we're shunned by our family and our friends. The cult says, okay, this person is vulnerable. They're going to be so desperate to have friends or a boyfriend, a girlfriend. They're going to be so desperate that we can, just take advantage of them. We can use anyone, put them in their lives, and they'll do whatever it takes to keep this person in as a friend. So sometimes we get people who are toxic, and we have to cut them out of our lives. We shouldn't be so desperate for friends that we'll stay friends with anyone. The same thing, if we get a friend and that person wants us to engage in criminal behavior, it could be selling drugs. It could be selling copyrighted material, such as, copyrighted DVDs. If we're selling bootleg DVDs, again, that's criminal behavior. So we don't want to get caught up in any kind of criminal, activity. And if someone has come into our lives and that's the kind of behavior that they are promoting, we need to get rid of them. I'll give you another example. The person may not ask us to engage in criminal behavior, but then they just may get us involved in unhealthy behaviors. And I'll give you an example of that. They may take us, they may get us to the habit of, let's go to the bar every day after work. And so, now you're flirting with becoming an alcoholic or alcoholic dependent. And so you have to be careful. You have to make wise choices. Again, it's not so much that you can't have friends. It's just that you don't want to pick up bad habits from these friends. You don't want to, again, become alcoholic dependent and all of this just because you want friends. So again, we have to be, you have to think in terms of your safety and your well-being. Um, we talked about relationships. Sometimes people are so desperate to be in a relationship that whoever the first guy or girl that comes along, you jump on board. You shouldn't rush into any kind of relationship if you see that the relationship is taking an unhealthy turn. There's controlling behaviors, there's abusive behaviors. You should end the relationship immediately, without question, without question. And again, if the person is hopping in and out of jail, you don't need that kind of chaos in your life. Okay, so that's one thing I always recommend, especially to women. Sometimes women get involved with a person, and that person brings so much grief and trouble into their life, and you have to be willing to end the relationship if need be. You should not be just being, dragged along and following this person from one headache and one, chaotic situation to the next. So be careful who you allow in your life. All right. And like I said, that includes anybody. Again, the cult is counting on us being so isolated and feeling so desperate for association that we'll just, befriend anyone. And I don't want you to do that. All right. The next thing you need to be careful of is scams. What happens is with cult members, people who are never cult members are they prey on us. And the way they do that is they know Jehovah's Witnesses we're trained as cult members to be loving, to help when we can, to be kind and all of this. So what happens is sometimes they join the XJW group and say, hey, listen, my car broke down. I need money for the car, or I'm 2 months behind in the rent. I need, whatever money for the rent. I need this. I need that. And so again, they're counting on the kindness of Jehovah's Witnesses. The training that we've had as Jehovah's Witnesses, so that will help out. And so we have to be very careful about this. We have to be very discerning about whether we should, whether we should help a person out or not. Um, I always err on the side of caution. I always recommend, instead of giving funds directly to that person, is to try to find charitable organizations to give it to. the Red Cross, and try to find and see if they can go through that organization. Basically, you want some type of vetting, and because we can't vet each and every person, we have to exercise caution. And so, and like I said, it happens frequently where this person has a personal hardship, the next person, and so some of them are legitimate XJW members, but then some of them aren't. And so we have to be very careful about scams. All right. The next thing we need to be careful of. This is in regards to our well-being and our mental health, right? So there are life coaches, right? And basically what a life coach does is they're kind of like a cheerleader. They help a person who may be in a rut or someone who's a little bit stuck or whatever. They try to help them push ahead to reach a goal, whether that goal is a personal goal or a professional goal or just to declutter their life. They kind of just help them you know manage their lives a little better. It could be they're just a little bit disorganized and just need guidance. So that's what a life coach does, right? A psychotherapist, or we just call them a therapist, but a psychotherapist, what they do is completely different. They help us to um, to correct problematic behaviors, beliefs, feelings, relationships, and somatic responses. And so as you can see, the services offered by a psychotherapist are very different than what a life coach does. And the services offered by a psychotherapist is more in line with what XJWs need. The reason I'm making that distinction is because there are life coaches that approach XJWs and they try to get them to enroll in boot camps and things like that, and they charge them like $500-$600. We have to be very careful about those kinds of things because, again, you want to make sure that you're getting the assistance from someone who is trained, a trained professional, a licensed professional who can give you the professional help that you need. And so sometimes if it's just a life coach or something, that's not it's not as in depth the amount of help that you need. And so you got to be careful about that. You should, again, we have to be selective with anyone that comes into your life, whether that person is there to offer professional services or whatever, life coaching, whatever it is, you need to be very selective. And so I would recommend if you do seek any kind of help after leaving the cult, it always be with a therapist, a psychologist, someone in the mental health field. It should not be just a life coach. The reason for this is many of us are, in, whether we're diagnosed or not, we'll probably have some form of post-traumatic stress disorder. There's a diagnosis there that many of us, are dealing with, again, whether we've been diagnosed or not, and we should be, seeking the help of a licensed professional who can help us with it. Um, a life coach cannot make that kind of diagnosis. And so that's why we need to be extremely careful when we seek mental health, when we seek, professional help after we leave after we leave the cult. It should not be with a life coach. It should always be with a mental health professional. But again, for the life coach, it's wonderful because they can make a few $100s off of each XJW cult member that accepts their services. So they're making a financial killing, but again, we're not getting the complete help that we need. And so that's why, we have to be careful. And again, I've mentioned this before in other videos. There are some mental health professionals who will say, oh, Jehovah's Witnesses really aren't a cult. And again, you want to pick people who are going to help you. And so even with mental health professionals, you want to be selective. If you're not benefiting from the therapy sessions, but find a different therapist. But it's important that you get the help you need. All right. All right. So the next thing that we're going to talk about that crops up, and this has happened too, XJWs. we have to be careful of one another. Some of us have been through some awful situations in the cult, and then when we leave, we're still carrying that baggage around, and we just, visit that trauma and that chaos onto other XJWs. So we got to be careful. Um, we just have to make sure that we don't take what happened to us in that cult and we keep reliving it over and over outside outside the cult. We don't want to revisit those same problems and headaches onto other people. So again, when you leave the cult, be selective. Make sure that you're finding people who are building to you and are helping you move forward in life. So that brings us to another situation. Sometimes we arrange, XJW meetups. And I arranged one earlier this year. It was on the day of the memorial. And one of the people that attended that he attended the meetup, and he asked this question of the group, and at first none of us paid any attention to it. But his question was, so do any of us still have religious, inclinations and beliefs and all of that? And a few people did. And what he was doing there, and I didn't, of course, I didn't have any, pre-knowledge of this, but his intention was to recruit, ex-JWs into a different cult that it was started by former JWs. Okay, so imagine you leave the watchtower and you still have some belief in God or Christ or whatever. So he says, well, hey, we formed another cult. It's very similar to Watchtower, not exactly the same, but you should join our group. So again, we have to be careful of those kind of people, because now you're just hopping from one cult to another, and we just got out of one cult. So you have to be careful that you're not just signing up for another, because the reason why is if that's the case, you could just stay in the original cult. You could say in Watchtower, that's what cults do. They operate the same way. So you gotta be careful. That's one reason I wanted to make this video today, because it's I don't want you to think that when you leave the cult, everything's roses and sunshine. It's a good life. It's a good life, but again, it's going to be dependent upon you making wise decisions. Um, we have to be comfortable with making decisions that protect, our in our best interest. Meaning, again, if we see someone is in our life and they're causing all this chaos and they're trying to lead us down a wrong path, we have to have enough strength of character to get that person out of our lives. We have to cut rope, and cut them out of our lives. That's what we have to do. So that's the one piece of advice that I think is important in all of these situations. You have to be willing to guard who you allow into your space. That means into your heart, into your wallet. You have to be into your brain, into your mind. You have to be willing to guard those areas of your life. And it's going to fall on you to do that. That means you're going to have to become comfortable with setting boundaries, telling people no. When someone wants to take you in the wrong direction, they want you to follow them, you have to be willing to say no. And keep in mind, when we were Jehovah's Witnesses, weren't we taught to be sheep-like? We just follow the herd. We just follow the leaders. And so sometimes the cult thinks we're still in that mindset where we just want to follow people. We want to be told what to do and follow. So they want to, they put us in situations to see, are you a follower? Will you just do as you're told? And so be careful, be careful that you don't, get yourself into a situation where you're just being led from one problem situation to the next, to the next, to the next. And as I said, that includes any kind of relationship. That means whether you're dating a person, whether you're married to the person, whether you're just friends with the person. Maybe it's a person at work. But whatever the situation is, whatever the relationship is, the people you are allowing in your life, you need to be very selective with them. You need to be careful that you don't relive the same headaches and problems that you experienced while you were in the cult. Even if you do have the same type of negative experiences, your responses have to be that you are taking care of yourself. You're setting boundaries. You're not going to get to a point where you're always angry at the time. You're always trying to, be the bigger person and make peace and all of this. You're no longer a Jehovah's Witness anymore. So that's going to fall on you, right, to protect your person. You're going to have, and that means everything, your heart, your mind, everything. So I hope this video helps. I'm going to try to include some, you know, references and things like that, things that you can go to for help on this topic. But it's very important. It's very important. And like I said, the jewel in the crown is to get an ex-member to go back to the cult and say, listen, you don't want to go out there. It's just awful out there. You won't make it. You'll hate it. Blah blah blah. That is just what Rothschild wants. And we just have to be resolute not to give it to them. If we exercise, discretion, and we're if we're very vigilant about who we allow into our circle of friends, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. So that's the video for today. I'm hoping these videos are helping you all. And the main thing is I want you to know what to expect. When and if you leave. I want you to know what you should expect. And again, if you have any questions, our Facebook group is up. It's called the PIMO and POMI, POMI. What is it? Teens and young adults. And anyway, we're on Facebook. And again, I have resources in there. Sometimes I come across job announcements, or I come up with, very various jobs that youth and young adults might be interested in, and I post links up there. So please join the group. Join that group if you can, and again, like I said, even if you have to use a fake name, just join the group. And like I said, there's various resources there to help you in your planning of exiting the cult. So take care, everyone. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Love you guys. Bye.